of what we've seen happen?
So one of the things that we start to see is in this area of cloud. There are a lot of players who build cloud ecosystems, but the way we have started to build within India with different companies, the way to switch between clouds, the way to create cloud-independent growth scenarios, that's quite innovative. And each of the companies here, many of the companies in the audience are doing that today. And we are seeing clients.
Who's most innovative of each of the companies sitting here?
Well, frankly, these are the most innovative companies, so it's a privilege to be with them in any case. But we see that across all of our client base. And we see that there's a huge amount of respect that clients have for that level of innovation that many of these companies bring to those clients.
Okay, Rishad, build on that. Yeah, yes, please.
Can I challenge the question in itself?
Please.
Because I think we've got to break this idea of Indian companies versus global companies.
Yeah.
The reality is some of the global companies today have more people in India than some of us have here.
True.
Right? So the concept is not about whether you're global or Indian. The reality is we're all multinational companies.
Right.
The Indian companies began with Indian heritage, so they tend to have more Indian talent than some of the global companies. So I think that philosophy has completely changed. The other thing that's changed, it's not only technology companies that have a presence here. It's actually customers and then enterprises we were talking about earlier. You know, I was talking with a customer earlier who's a large global bank, and they have more people here. They're building a talent base here, not for cost and quality, but for strategic differentiation. So they would tell you, don't walk our corridors of London and New York to get business. Walk our corridors of Hyderabad and Chennai and Mumbai and Pune. Right? So the philosophy has changed dramatically. So I would not pile Indian companies and global companies separately, because we're all leveraging a very similar talent base, which is a very, very powerful and qualified talent base.
I'm glad that you brought that point up, and I'll address talent in just a second. But Rishad, you know, to build on what you just said, and you're absolutely right, it's not just the Microsofts and the Ciscos who are setting up R&D centers here in India. So the back office story is long gone, or at least that's behind us. But you're right about how India is sort of becoming the innovation hub for manufacturing companies as well. You know, patents are being filed out of India. I think IBM filed about 900 patents in the last quarter out of India or something like that, if my memory serves me right. What do you believe is going to be this IP innovation-driven model, and how do you see companies like yours benefiting from it going forward?
So I think two things are happening, right? One is you have young companies that are becoming true product companies coming out of India. And it's still early days, but I think that's happening. And that's the challenge we keep getting, which is, you know, is India truly becoming a innovation hub if we don't really have world-class companies coming out of India, which I think is changing. You know, I can speak for Wipro. You know, our philosophy is more how do we leverage product and services in a combined manner. Unlikely that we will become a product company or have large-scale IP that we sell independently. But how do we combine product and services to take productized services or business process as a service? That's the journey we are on, but you know, the journeys could be different for different stakeholders.
Productization of services, and I know I'm getting a lot of tweets on my Twitter timeline asking me about whether that is going to be part of the evolution as far as your businesses are concerned. And this is something that we have discussed, but tell me, lay out a roadmap for us on what this is actually going to mean.
Absolutely. So, for example, we have filed now more than 5,000 patents, been granted more than about 1,000. The fundamental belief is that when you think about IPR, and I'll come to productization, we have the intellect. We didn't have the discipline and the capability of converting that intellect into property and then to exploit that as a productized right. And that's the journey that we are on. It requires us to go through this in a systematic way.
So where are we in that journey?
We are definitely in the form of actually capturing our intellect and converting that into an asset. I think collectively, if you were to think about Indian companies, we have not yet mastered the art of productizing that and exploiting it. But that is just a capability, and that will come through.
You're saying that's just a capability, it will come through, but what's holding it back? When will we actually see this asset monetization, if I can call it that?
One step at a time. It's, you know,
5 years, 10 years, do you believe that it's going to happen within this decade?
Absolutely. I would say, I would definitely put it well below, before 10 years. In fact, all of us here, we have had phenomenal success in productizing the automation side capabilities. All of us have had very good success productizing on the domain side. In fact, the top 3 banking and financial services software all over the world belongs to one of the 3 of us. So we are not just talking about local products, we are talking about global dominance in specific niches. It is becoming broad-based. There are many here in the audience, I'm sure, who are creating the niches in much more technology-focused areas, some in domain-focused areas.
Yeah.
So the groundswell of productization that is happening in the country, combined with the talent and the fact that we have such a good visibility into the value creation across multiple industries, I believe that we are in a beautiful position to actually push this forward and unleash the full potential of what we have here.
When do you believe we'll unleash the full potential, Salil, and what do you believe could hold us back from unleashing the full potential?
I think the discussion we were just having, just to add to it and then come to the question, I think there's a view on products which we just discussed. There's a view on platforms. And platforms are where we see, again, with the people representing the companies here, but also in the audience, a tremendous amount of success. So you can see platforms today, for example, on mortgages. You can see platforms on insurance. These are the platforms that give you scale and that give you tremendous benefit to growth. Then you have automation stories, which are different ways of productizing. Then you have stories which are around what we call things like bot factories. These things make automated development also more and more feasible. So there are many different ways that companies in India, and this is, as Rashad pointed out, not just companies of Indian origin, but operating from India, who have tremendous ability to drive this. In terms of what can stop us, frankly, my view is, I don't see anything that is going to stop us. Because if you look at it at a scale of global scale, tech is a prevalent theme everywhere. So, you have, let's say a manufacturing company in a small manufacturing town in the Western world calling themselves a tech company now. Here we are the tech center of the world. There's no technology which is developed which we within India don't have leading view on. So I don't, if you just put those two themes together, we have a one-way ticket to growth.
One-way ticket to growth. Rishad, Premji, and we ask you, all three of you, this every quarter. What happens to the legacy business, and what is the bet that you're making on the digital side, which of course is going to be the bet on the future? And there are always concerns on the judicious mix between defending the past and attacking the future. How much of a challenge is that for you?
No, I think, look, all organizations are morphing and changing. What was relevant 5 years ago is less relevant today. You had everything in data centers, you're moving a large chunk to the cloud, you're moving them to public clouds, you're moving them to hybrid clouds, to private clouds. So the reality is the nature of work is changing, and I think you've got to keep up with the times, and what was relevant to serve your customers 5 years ago is not relevant to serve your customers today anymore. And you have to be open to the mindset of allowing some business to go from the past to be able to capture some of the new business that is the future. And, to use the word cannibalization, you have to be able to cannibalize yourself, because if you don't, some of your competition will. That's exactly the propositions customers will, your competition will take to customers. And you have to have that openness. And I acknowledge that it's not easy. It's not easy in a public limited company that reports results quarter to quarter. But you've also got to be strategic about this, because if you're not going to do it, you're going to be taken away anyways by somebody else. So you might as well do it to yourself.
Okay.
So I'm of that view.
So what are you currently in the process of cannibalizing or disrupting within the organization for yourself?
No,
before Rajesh or Salil force you to do it.
I'll give you a very simple example. You may have 300 people working on a particular transaction operations process, and you're working with people, and you can significantly automate that process by leveraging intelligent bots. You're going to do that, and it may change the profile of the way you command pricing for it, but if you don't do it, somebody else will. That's why I also believe, going forward, Shireen, that the nature of commercial models may change. Historically, we've charged in some form of people, whether it be fixed price projects, whether it be capacity, whether it be time and material. Maybe you'll move to a model where you charge for people and bots, as an example, right? And that can be a commercial model that can perhaps evolve over time. So things will change.
Things will change. Do you believe, as Rishad mentioned, that the commercial model is also likely to change as we see more and more of this shift towards automation, which is already showing up efficiency gains, for each one of you?
I think the commercial models have been constantly changing, and they'll continue to change. So if you even look at our own business, a percentage of the business now comes out of transactions. And the idea is that you take a larger and larger chunk of the value chain, and you take on responsibility for delivering that value. And that is phenomenally exciting, because, and this is not, it started earlier on transaction processing, now it is shifting more and more into other domains. And as we get a larger chunk of the value chain, the amount of value addition that we can put on to that also keeps on increasing. we've been traditionally addressing, I believe, in the range of about 3% of the total value addition capacity in most industries. The opportunity is to take it up to 20 to 30%.
But